Welcome to the historic Ocean House, a luxurious hotel that pays homage to New England's golden age of hospitality. With timeless elegance and renewed civility, this treasured resort is the setting for our special broadcast of the Ocean House Author Series. Each program features nationally best-selling and award-winning authors in a salon-style conversation, hosted by Ocean House owner, actress, and best-selling author Deborah Goodrich Royce. WCRI is pleased to partner with the Ocean House to present this ongoing series, which brings you the best and the brightest of the literary world. Now, let's take you to the Ocean House.
Beatriz Williams is the best-selling author of over a dozen novels, including Husbands and Lovers, The Summer Wives, and The Secret Life of Violent Grant, as well as 4 other novels co-written with the ladies today with her, Lauren Willig and Karen White. A native of Seattle, she graduated from Stanford University and earned an MBA in finance from Columbia University. She lives with her husband and 4 children near the Connecticut shore, where she divides her time between writing and laundry. Lauren Willig is a New York Times and USA Today best-selling author of more than 25 novels, including Band of Sisters and the Rita Award-winning Pink Carnation series. An alumna of Yale University, she has a graduate degree in history from Harvard and a JD from Harvard Law School. She lives in New York City with her husband, 2 young children, and vast quantities of coffee. Karen White is a New York Times and USA Today best-selling author of 34 novels, including The Last Night in London and The House in Britannia.
The House on Britannia.
Ah, I got it, okay. As well as the Trad Street mystery series. She currently writes what she refers to as grit lit, Southern women's fiction. She is a graduate of the American School in London and has a BS in management from Tulane University. When not writing, she spends her time reading, singing, and avoiding cooking. She has 2 grown children and currently lives near Atlanta, Georgia with her husband and a spoiled Havanese dog. The panelists will be in conversation with our wonderful hostess, Deborah Goodrich Royce. Deborah's thrillers examine puzzles of identity. Reef Road, a national bestseller, was named one of the best books of 2023 by Kirkus Reviews and an Indie Next Pick by American Booksellers Association. Ruby Falls won the Zibby Award for the best plot twist, and Finding Mrs. Ford was hailed by Forbes, Book Riot, and Good Morning America's best of lists. She began as an actress on All My Children and in multiple films before transitioning to the role of story editor at Miramax Films, developing Emma and early versions of Chicago and A Wrinkle in Time. With her husband Chuck, Deborah restored the Avon Theater, the Ocean House Hotel, Deer Mountain Inn, the United Theater, Martin House Books, and numerous Main Street revitalization projects in Rhode Island and the Catskills. After the discussion, we will open it up to questions from the audience. If you raise your hand, we'll walk the microphone over to you so we can capture your questions for the radio audience. And now, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Team W and Deborah.
That sounds like a band. Team W and Deborah and Team W. You can take it on the road. And we've got our outfits. We're ready to go. All right, so who's read this? Has anybody read this yet? You are going to have so much fun. This is what you're doing this weekend. Just curl up in front of a fire, and we were going to have a very handsome Scotsman in a kilt serving you scotch, but apparently...
But he got mobbed apparently before the event and is now...
He's outside,
He's in Beatrice's trunk.
With the sheep.
So you have to make do with us. So I always like to start with, I want to hear you say what this book is about, and you can say it in any order. I'm sure you've said this before.
A couple times. You're good at you two start.
Well, I think the genesis of this book took place not too far away. We were in Newport, Rhode Island, finishing up our most recent, before this one, novel, The Lost Summers of Newport, and we were having one of our multiple caffeine and cookie breaks that we take during the course of the writing day, as I'm sure you understand. And we were joking about the fact that everybody likes to, whenever we sort of are doing one of these book events and people are asking, were you put together by your publisher like a girl band? And we're sort of like, no, we're good friends. We started writing these books so we could spend more time together, have our publisher send us on book tour together and pay our bar bill. And it was really, a pretty simple thing. But everyone sort of thinks this is just too cute a story. There's no way 3 authors could actually have written all these books together. So we were, sort of playing around our little what if game. Like, well, what if 3 authors had been put together by their publisher like a girl band to write a book together?
And what if these 3 authors secretly hated each other?
And what if they are on writing retreat in a castle in a secluded Scottish island? And what if the owner of the castle turns up dead?
Murder. In multiple creative ways.
Including being hit over the head with a whole bunch of rolled R's.
And
So-
what if,
Wait, go on.
One more. What if our 3 authors are suspected, each of them, of having a hand in the demise of this male author who is found dead?
You mean his murder?
Murder.
Okay, so why Scotland? Did you have a particular place in mind? How did you get to Scotland?
It kind of goes back to our origin story, which is a true story. We met in this bar at the end of we didn't meet in a bar.
No,
we had met
knew
before.
each other. And the bar may not have been an accident. Our meeting there might just have been prearranged.
Prearranged.
Not
so
by our
we
publisher.
literally, it was 3 authors walk into a bar. That was our origin story. And we had
Totally
already known
true.
each other. We were good friends. And we were saying, this is so fun. Like, book tour can be a slog, as we know. And you're by yourself and all these things. But this was fun. So why not write a book together? And I don't know why. I think we were trading a lot of sheep jokes at that point.
We all read.
We'd been drinking, okay? We had been drinking.
You'll be shocked to hear this, but we were couple bottles into a wonderful evening.
Well, I mean, we had started out with the espresso martinis, but we figured the caffeine cancels out the vodka.
Right. It doesn't. But go on.
Spoiler.
Yeah.
So still, why Scotland?
Oh, sorry. So,
we're getting there. We're getting there. This is what apparently they call in the Navy a long road to a small house. But we're getting there. We're getting there. Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah. So anyway, long story short, Outlander, very popular book, right? We'd all read it, Jamie Fraser, right? And then that happened to be the year that the big blockbuster book of the year had come out.
That was my first book overseas.
No, it actually was not. But it was.
Wait, yours was not made into a movie?
Yeah, no.
3
So
movies?
I was a
movies?
little disappointed because I was convinced my book was going to be the big book of summer, and it was not. There was another book out there
Of such genius, literary skill, and everything else that I'm sure you all have on a pedestal in your own homes, and that would have been.
It's been taught in several university courses.
Yes.
Okay, should we all say it together?
Yes.
Ready?
50 Shades of Grey.
So we had this brilliant idea, again, a few bottles in. We were going to write this anthology. It was going to be set in Scotland, and it was going to be called 50 Shades of Plaid.
It was clearly a winner.
There were going to be lots of that because for some reason we were doing the sheep joke, so there was going to be lots of sheep.
They were pretty bad.
And all the
Ram the point home.
Yeah, not to ram the point home, but they were very bad sheep jokes. So of course it needed to be set in Scotland because Christian Grey in a kilt, or you
or
see where
like
we're going.
a cross between Jamie Fraser and Chris. Who would not want a piece of that? Seriously.
We thought this was the most brilliant idea ever until we staggered out into the hallway and bumped into Karen's editor. And we were so excited. We thought she was going to sign us up on the spot. We handed her cocktail napkins to write the contract then and
sign
there.
her name and
I know. Here's the problem, though. Karen's editor does not drink. Alcohol.
Anything. She
any
also doesn't
kind.
drink coffee.
Yeah, nothing.
So that didn't end well. She told us to go upstairs to our rooms and
She was like,
sleep it
what
off.
the flock,
Yeah.
Karen?
Well, this is what happens when we're on the lam.
Yeah.
So we're leaving Watch Hill for the Borscht Belt.
But it's like the Borscht Belt in a kilt.
Okay, but still, why Scotland though?
Because
So why Scotland?
We got our
We felt
three
very-
authors.
Well, we felt very deprived when we didn't get to write 50 Shades of Plaid. And so we wrote 4 books after that, none of which, by the way, were set in Scotland. But we snuck secret sheep into all 4 of them.
Yes.
And finally, that
Are there secret sheep?
There
Yes.
Go back, reread them. Find the secret
right.
sheep.
Verify. Secret sheep.
So you'll have to all go and buy our backlist and read them all.
And do
And then you'll get a bag
Yeah.
and a sheet.
Yes.
So I want to talk about your protagonists. So we have Cat de Noir, Cassie Pringle, and Emma Endicott. Why don't you each take one without hinting at who wrote who and describe one of them in any order?
So
do you wanna start?
the premise here is we have an editor puts together 3 authors to write a book, and the book is going to be called 50 Shades of Plaid. And it's going to be around a true crime murder mystery that had happened in the Scottish island 100 years earlier, involving a debauched laird who was holding orgies in his castle. And so our editor is going to put together 3 experts with particular sets of skills. One is a writer of cozy mysteries, and her name is Cassie Parsons Pringle. She writes these series, sort of like, there's like a Moggies and Mocha series where it's a crime-solving cat in a Seattle coffee shop. One of her series is her Little Bake Shop series, where people are murdered by ingesting delicious baked treats. So Cassie,
And don't forget the Little Hedge Witch series
Yes.
about girl power cadfile in the Middle Ages solving
and
mysteries.
yeah, and unfortunately,
Yes.
her editor made her stop writing those because
They
they
don't
were
know
not
why.
very commercial and they didn't
Yeah.
sell, which broke Cassie's poor little heart. But
has
Cassie
6
she's
children,
like
by
the
the
den
way.
mother. She's got all these kids, and she walks around with a Vera Bradley tote bag where like everything comes out of this tote
Like
bag.
Mary Poppins.
It's like a Mary Poppins bag.
But a plaid Mary
But
Poppins.
she's our murder expert. She knows everything about poisons and also how to get away with murder. So murder. So she's our mystery expert.
And then we've got Emma Endicott, who writes very serious biographical historical fiction. If there is an unknown woman out there who touched history, very briefly, in some way, Emma will have written an 800-page tome with endnotes about this woman. In fact, her latest great work, which somehow failed to hit any bestseller lists, was The Unsinkable Prunella Schuyler.
And if you've read our other books, you will recognize who Prunella
Prunella
Scott.
Scott.
We
And-
tried to kill her on the
and-
Lusitania.
and
she
to
would
be
die.
fair-
She would die. Hence unsinkable.
Perfect subject, because Prunella certainly was there throughout some seriously key historical moments. in-
Usually,
in the
she'll be
20th
happy
She's
to
like
show
Zelig.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just a bit.
She's
Yeah.
like
her
the
memoirs.
Pierce.
Or she's sort of like an unamiable Forrest Gump. She's like the anti-Forrest.
Yes.
Spreading misery across a large area of history. Anyway, poor Emma comes from an impoverished Boston Brahmin family that's long on bloodlines and short on funds. So her plaid that she's brought on retreat looks suspiciously like an elderly Chapin kilt from her mother's all-girl school days.
Yes.
And Emma is there
Reduce,
because...
reuse, recycle.
Yes, and of course Emma is there because of her affinity for the archives. She is the resident historian, but she's a little dubious about the third member of the trio.
Cat de Noir.
Not
her real name.
Not her real name.
And she brings to the table something that the other 2 don't. She is actually our sex expert. She actually has a degree in sexual psychology. She knows everything there is to know about sex, and she likes to dress the part. She likes to dress in these one-piece, well, when she's not wearing a bustier or something that looks strikingly like a peignoir or
Yes.
see-through.
Vinyl or leather, but
Right.
vegan
Yeah.
leather.
Vegan,
Because,
vegan.
yeah.
Of course.
Well, you've never seen anything until you've seen plaid vegan leather.
Yes.
As
I
modeled
mean,
by
these
Kat.
2 normally wear it on book tour, but I
I
told
wore
not
it at
tonight.
the last event. I'm sorry you missed it. It was
Yeah.
really...
But we
police were
wouldn't
called.
let her pack her pantaboot this time.
Pantaboot. So that was a word I'd never heard.
so
And
that is
actually,
sorry.
you sent me to Google P-A-N-T-A-B-O-O-T.
Yes.
Have you
Pantaboot.
heard of pantaboots?
They're an actual
When
thing.
when you Google it, Google a picture and you'll see Kim Kardashian wearing a set. Yes.
Which
Yeah.
tells
It
you
is-
everything you need
That's
to know.
all you need to know
It's
about
all in
pantaboots.
one.
That stretches up into be your pant. It's like
And
pants
top. It's
with
all one
shoes
piece.
hanging on the bottom. It just sounds so horrible to me to put on my body.
It's like a leather unitard with shoes.
Yes, with
stilettos.
stilettos.
Yes.
Stilettos. And
Yes.
that is our
And
cat.
we can see you all have your phones out ordering your pantaboots
can-
now.
Exactly. So yes, the paranormal erotica is
that is her.
Kat's-
That's what she writes.
Kat's genre.
Yes, that is her genre. And she brings to the trio an expertise in sexual behavior.
So this segues into, you each write a character. You've spoken about this. It's a round robin. I think that's the way you go.
Yes. Yeah.
You do not disclose who writes which character, so guess all you want. But
We
how
won't
do
tell you.
How do you pick? Do you assign each other? Do you clamor for a character? Do you try to go with type, against type? How do you do it?
Usually
It's
against
the above.
type.
Kind of, yeah. The key, I think the key thing is not so much how we pick the characters. It's the fact that we do all our outlining and our character development before we pick a character. So that we have already created these characters together. We've done all that brainstorming. We've outlined the book, outlined it chapter by chapter, and it's the very end of our 4-day writing retreat. Our 4-day drinking session.
Well,
slash
with the fourth W.
writing retreat that we pick, and I don't know, it's kind of just a mutual.
Well, we vary. Now that we've written 5 of these together, sometimes we feel like writing to type, and sometimes we feel like writing against type.
Because we like messing with our readers.
We love it so
Because
much.
we know you will try to guess who wrote what, and we don't want you to guess. Or do we want you to guess?
Well, the funny thing is, when we wrote that first book, it never occurred to us that people would not be able to figure out who had written which character, because we'd all written lots of books. We're all very voicey. We have very distinct voices. And then we sent this off to Karen's editor, the one who doesn't drink anything, and she sent the wrong edits back to the wrong authors. And we were amazed and amused, and we thought it was just her. And then it went out to the world, and we started getting emails saying, I know who you wrote, and they were all wrong. And so since then, and then with the second book, we decided, fine, we're gonna play with this. And so we put Easter eggs and all sorts of red herrings. So you
lots
can't
of red
tell.
herrings. Lots of red herrings.
Yeah.
And sheet, red sheet.
and sheet.
And yes.
And just so you know, there is a weak link if you're really dying to know,
are
and you
desperate
want
to know.
to endow.
I have 4 children I'm putting through college.
So-
and actually the youngest has decided she wants to go to boarding school. So if any of you wants to endow a scholarship for one of my children,
Talk to Beatrice.
talk to me afterward. We'll talk numbers.
So that aside, though, will you one day reveal it, like, the identity of Jack the Ripper, that the files will open,
After our death, when our
20
text
years
chain
later, when
is published.
we will publish
We
the
already
heavily
have the deal on
redacted
that,
20-year, however long
futures contract, yes,
text chain that we have going back and forth.
Yeah.
We will also reveal who wrote what.
Okay.
Yes, we have it planned.
Speaking of writing.
That's our retirement plan.
And we've got our daughters are going to edit our 20-volume
but your
redacted.
post-death retirement plan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
We'll have very
that's
comfortable
a
clothes. We need to think this through.
Somebody,
We'll take a short break and be back with the Ocean House Author Series here on WCRI.
The cold and blustery days of winter, when New Englanders are holed up with nowhere to go and nowhere to be, are the perfect time to curl up with a good book. If you or someone in your life that enjoys whiling away the hours by getting lost in the pages of a novel, why not present them with a book by hotelier, actress and nationally best-selling and award-winning author Deborah Goodrich Royce. Start with Deborah's latest thriller, Reef Road, a Publishers Weekly, Good Morning America, and American Booksellers Association pick. This true crime-inspired novel of suspense and high society in Palm Beach probes unhealed generational scars and a wrenching and original work of fiction. To learn more about the fascinating life and times of the author and her other page-turning mysteries, Finding Mrs. Ford and Ruby Falls, visit DeborahGoodrichRoyce.com.
And we're back with the Ocean House Authors Series on WCRI.
Presley,
yeah.
Presley, I've had him as Paisley.
Slash male author. Yeah.
He's a male author. He's very successful. He feels very good about himself.
Mr. Kill It O'Clock.
No one has a greater respect for the talent of Brett Saffron Presley than Brett Saffron Presley.
Right. So
And
it
the New
must
York
have
Times
been
book review.
a lot of fun to write him. But talk a little bit about, male authors, female authors, being on the road, being on a panel with a male author, which is always an interesting thing.
They have a lot to say.
We need to interject here that we know a lot of male authors who are lovely.
Yes.
Absolutely lovely.
Yes.
I would go on tour with them in a heartbeat. But then there are, especially after we wrote this book, and we hear from editors and publicists or whatever about certain, they're like, oh, I know who you wrote that about. That's about such and such because he did such and such.
You know the story that at this conference he did that and that. And we're like,
And we nod and smile and they say, actually, no, we hadn't heard that one before.
I hadn't heard that one. But I think that over the course of all these years, we've all been exposed to some bad actors.
Yes.
You probably literally bad actors, but in the case of us, just like bad author actors, and and there's a pattern to it, and there's a you're on a panel and like they each do our little talk, and there's 3 male authors and me at the end with like 5 seconds left of the available time because they've just gone on and on and on, and that's just the least of it. I mean, some of the behavior we've seen, the condescension and the and just the whole way it's set up, that women's fiction, even though we read and write the most of any audience and any authors, the fact that we're kind of a little silo, we have to sort of prove that our books have layers and sophistication and all these things. Otherwise, it's just girly stuff that we're writing about. I could go on.
As you can see, we have what my son's kindergarten teacher calls big feelings.
Big feelings. We had some big feelings.
And this actually also emerged from that heavily redacted text chain where we have a hashtag we send back and forth to each other, hashtag male author, about some, when you're on a panel, and there are 4 women and 1 man, and you're each supposed to have 10 minutes because it's an hour-long thing, and then the guy speaks for an hour.
Yeah, and there you are.
Yes.
So this is, I think, there's always something to be solved in all of your books, but it's really your first turn at a classic Agatha Christie style locked room mystery.
Locked castle.
Locked castle mystery.
Did we mention it's set inside a castle?
And on an island. We figured we'd one-up the locked
Just
room
lock
by
'em in.
put the locked room in the locked
And
castle
a
on an island.
blizzard because, yes.
And throw in sheep.
Yes.
You need to trap them there. So did you go back and read a little Agatha Christie? Did you just call it to mind? How did you want to look at others? Did you not want to look at others? How did you work around that?
Well, I'm the obsessive mystery reader of the group. I mean, Dorothy Sayers is my goddess. And, during the pandemic, I found, for me in particular, I started chain reading Golden Age mysteries because at a time when everything was uncertain, it was so reassuring to know that someone would uncover the murderer and there would, in fact, be crumpets at the vicarage. And we all grew up on, mystery at 9 o'clock on Sunday night
Murder,
and
She
all that
Wrote.
sort of thing. And Nancy Drew.
Yeah, we're big Nancy Drew readers. So, and none of us had ever written a cozy mystery before. So why not? I mean, that's the whole reason why we decided to write collaborations in the first place, to stretch our writing muscles. Like, why not is a big part of who we are, and not just for single titles, but for this whole collaboration process.
So these characters are very compelling, and often in this type of mystery, you know, you have Hercule Poirot and Miss Marple, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Will the girls go on? Any ideas?
We were really tempted. We actually were sort of planning out a sort of 10-book sequence with titles like, well, this book we wanted to call it, I think you can guess our working title.
Our working title for the book was 50 Shades of Plaid. But for some reason, the marketing department thought that was a bad idea, which
Bad.
bad.
But so we had this whole idea for a series with like American Plaid, where they go back for Thanksgiving and there's some sort of, you know, historic home and there's a mystery.
Oh, well, no, remember that their book was going to be made into a movie.
That's right.
Yeah,
And so we had a whole series of
Hollywood
plaid-themed
plaid,
titles, yeah.
And
You could take them to Transylvania. That's always a good setting. Transylvania plaid.
Transylvania
Bloody plaid.
It sounds like a dance.
But I think, you know, I think readers expect historicals from us. So whether or not we do, because we love these characters. I think it would be a lot of fun.
Yes.
But I think at least for our next one, we're going to go back to our historical roots.
Yeah,
Yes.
so we can't tell you about it yet because we haven't even told our editor, but we do have an idea we're working on, and it is back to the multi-timeline.
City in mind for our
Yes.
next.
And will you have a brainstorming session where
We have it. It's
We're
already
booked.
booked.
But we can't say
already
which
booked.
city
we
it's
can't
booked
say
in.
where.
A state, but you could bribe.
But you can
Beatriz.
track our private jet.
we know what you want.
Well, this season we'd say you can track our reindeer.
Oh, true. Yeah.
So let's talk process a little bit. You mentioned that when you write books together, you're extremely buttoned up. Everything is completely planned out. I think that's not how you write when
Not
you're not
at
writing
all
together.
how we write on our own.
So
I wish.
everybody wants to
I
hear
know.
about process. So talk about
Okay.
how that works. How do you compartmentalize that?
So, and when we write our individual books, we have tried to do that, the detailed outline and all of that, and we fail at it totally. But when you write a book together, you sort of have to have a plan. And even though we do an outline, we do leave because we're very much what they call pantsers. We do a lot of seat of the pants, like we get inspired while we are writing. But as long as we have a guideline, it helps us to write. So when we get together, we come up with who our characters are because we're very character driven in our stories, in our own stories and also in these. And once we have the characters, then we start thinking about, okay, what time period, what is this person's background? What is their story arc going to be? So we do this all together. So we do have a sense of ownership. It's not her book or my book. This is our book. And I think that helps us when we plot, because it's like planning one of our own book, but so much better because, when you're plotting your book, you think, well, what if I do this? And you ask that question and you are answered with crickets. But when you're writing with two other people, you get an answer.
You have extra brains on deck.
Yeah,
to help.
right.
Yeah. And I think, and don't forget, let's go back to first principles here. The original reason for writing these books together was to spend more time together. So that 4-day writing retreat to outline the book, and then we have our writing process where we go round robin. We each have a character, and so it goes, kind of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we get together again for 4 days at the end to do all the editing and polishing and making sure there's no plot holes and all that thing, and then send it off to our editors. So, the multiple points of contact. I think we always keep in mind that the whole point of doing this is our friendship. And I think our friendship has grown and strengthened over the course of writing all these books. We just keep getting more and kind of knit together.
And we call our time together Vitamin W because we find it very restorative. Because you can get worn down writing your own books. There are plot holes, the characters won't talk to you, and then we get together and somehow everything is better.
Everything is
Also,
better.
our kids are at home with our husbands,
Yes.
so that also makes
Which is very good.
Yeah.
Now, do you ever go down a path on your collective writing where one or the other of you says, this is not right. This character is going in a direction that I need to raise my hand. It's not working.
And then we
that a
have a
little
full-out brawl and don't talk to each other.
We throw wine in each other's faces.
No, that does happen. But the thing that people don't understand why we work so well together and without conflict is we have this level of trust that I think is kind of rare in the creative world, you know, where I know that if Lauren says, you know, I know that, you know, according to when we talked about it in the outline, my character is supposed to be doing this, but then, you know, I realize that doesn't really work better, or I think this will work better. And because we trust this is, you know, we 100% trust Lauren. She's a great writer. We know this. She's got this. We're like, great, go for it.
If Lauren has a feeling that something's not right, Lauren's probably right.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I think we trust each other's instincts, but the other thing is, because we're friends, we're always in the business of caring for each other. I think that especially as women, we're always, you know, we're always caring for other people. It is so great to walk into this friendship and walk into a room with these women and know that they have my back. Like, I feel like there's so few areas in my life where I know someone has my back. And I know these two have my back. They're not going to do anything that, you know.
And we carry shovels, so we can help bury the body.
Karen's has bows on it. It's Kate Spade.
Yes.
But I would like to add, we don't edit each other unless asked.
Yeah.
So, you know, when we talk about someone feeling like they're going in the wrong direction or something, it's always one of us with our own character saying, I'm doing this, but it's not working, guys. What am I doing wrong? How can we play with this to make my character work better? It's never, you know, Beatrice saying, Karen, what did you do in that last chapter?
Yeah, never. It's normally
Were
like,
you
there's something
online
in
again?
the chapter that's not working.
And
they're very patient.
To remember.
Yeah, they're very patient because sometimes I don't see it right away, but we're reading through it every time it comes back to us. And they understand that sometimes when I've written light, just because I need to get the words down or something, that I will go back. They trust me. They know I'm going to go back and I'm going to fix it. I'm going to fill it out, and it's going to work out.
So you're kind of just sketching.
But she says that, but it's not true. Because it's always really good. So
It's
Karen will
always
send
really
her
good.
chapter and be like, guys, I know this is really bad. I'll go back and fix it. And then we're like, this is great.
What's there to fix?
Yes.
So, book tour, will you take this to Scotland? Will you
Well, should we mention the dedication?
Yes. We might not be
apologize
allowed
to
into
people of
Scotland. Yeah.
But actually, this was the cool thing. So when they started putting the audiobook together, so the first half of the book, we never mentioned our detective chief inspector Macintosh.
Who wears a Macintosh?
He actually does. We're not very creative namers. So he has to interview each of the three women. So the first half of the book, each chapter starts out with an excerpt from that police interview with that character. And so the audiobook producer had this great idea. She's like, so what if I hire a Scottish voice actor to play the part of the detective chief inspector?
And
like,
Karen,
we'll go to Scotland and interview him in person.
Although first Karen had said, why would you do that when you could have me? And then she auditioned.
Yeah, I could crush a grape.
And for some reason, they decided to go in a different direction.
And actually find a real Scot. So I will say,
But they would not let us go to Scotland, sadly, to audition our Scot. Or even we said, well, bring them to New York and we'll audition them. And they told us to stop objectifying the voice talent.
yes.
Are there any Scottish people in here?
Oh, so I was actually.
Oh no!
I was at a book signing last week, and a Glaswegian came up to me and said, and in his accent, which unlike Karen, I will not attempt to do until I'm much drunker than this. And he said, so I understand this book is about Scotland. I have to get, I said,
No, maybe
in
not.
advance, I'm sorry. Please read the dedication, which says to the people of Scotland, we're sorry. Because fundamentally,
Thanks for all the plaid.
yes.
So before we're about to open it up to you, but each one of you, is there something coming up that you want to talk to us about?
Lauren has a book coming out in March, so you should start.
Why, thank you. We'll go chronologically. So my next book is called The Girl from Greenwich Street, and it's based on an unsolved murder, a true crime, and a famous trial that happened in New York in 1800. A girl's body was found in the Manhattan well. and a young carpenter at her Quaker cousin's boarding house was accused of the crime. But this carpenter had a wealthy and influential older brother who went out and got the best legal team money could buy.
Johnny Cochran.
Too early, too late. Yeah, Brock Holst Livingston, who I'm sure you all know. Aaron Burr and Alexander Hamilton.
Wow.
Who, in real life, for real, this is like history. It's so crazy, it must be true. They had to team up to save this man from the gallows just months before the April 1800 elections, where they are tearing each other to shreds. And it's the craziest story. We have a 99-page transcript. It's America's first fully recorded murder trial, and I call
just discovered shorthand.
Yes,
so.
it was very exciting. Then, luckily for
Technology,
us,
yeah.
yes. But anyway, I call it Law and Order 1800.
And I just say something about that. I was driving along and I heard Lauren on the radio on NPR, and they started, I didn't know it was going to be you, because they were talking about a store. Yep. There's a store in Brooklyn?
In downtown.
In downtown
New York,
The
in
well
Manhattan.
is in the store. Wow. Right? Is that what I was hearing?
Yes, 120.
Because then you came on and I sort of focused my brain cells. The well is exposed in the store.
It's 129 Spring Street, although there is a debate among historians whether that was the real well where Elma Sands was drowned. That's sort of common knowledge in New York that that was the well, but there are people who claim that was only a later cistern, and that the well snobs claim that the real well is somewhere else and has not been found.
Well, you can go figure it out for yourself.
Yes, don't go down the well. And I think then next up is Karen.
Yes, so fine. July 22nd, I have, I'm returning. It's been 5 years since I had a single title. I've been continuing with my series book, but this is I'm very excited about this book. New publisher, it's that Lost Carolina Summer. It's set in Charleston suburb of South Carolina, and it starts when a young girl, she's 8 years old, and she is crabbing off the pier behind her house, and she is hit by lightning. And from that point on, she has a recurring dream about a car being driven over. She can tell it's the marsh. She's very familiar with the marshes of the Low Country. And she knows there are two people in the car. She doesn't know who they are. She doesn't recognize them. But the car goes over the side, and only one person emerges from the car.
Is his name Kennedy?
Yeah.
Not Chappaquiddick.
This is South Carolina, and it has nothing to do with that. But anyway, so she has this recurring dream her entire life. She also has a very difficult relationship with her mother and her older sister. And so after she graduates from college, she moves to the West Coast, and she is happy to discover that that dream goes away. And then when 2 years go by, she gets a phone call from her sister saying their mother is not well. She has dementia, and she cannot handle it, and she needs the sister, Phoebe, to come home. So Phoebe comes back home to South Carolina thinking it'll be just a short trip, but she starts having that dream again, but this time the dream is letting her see more and more detail, and of course it opens up this Pandora's box into the past. So, and then in November, I have the third book in the New Orleans set series, and that is The Lady on Esplanade. So 2 books out next year, because I didn't have anything out last year. So.
She's like, it's like buses.
Yeah.
Nothing.
You wait and you wait.
Well,
And then they
life
all
gets
come
in the
at
way
once.
sometimes. Unfortunately, life does interfere with writing. So,
Yeah.
but
And now Beatrice.
Yes, I have a book. I can't actually tell you the title yet because there's still we haven't launched it yet, but it'll be out in early August, and it's a bit. If you've read Husbands and Lovers. Oh, thank you all, because that tuition bill just landed in my inbox. So I'm really excited you're reading. So anyway, we love that book so much, and so the next book is a bit of a follow-on. It's set on Winthrop Island again in the present day. If you remember, Sedge Peabody is in it. He's a main character, and Mike, the bartender at the Mohegan Inn, is back. Monk and Mallory have cameos, but it's basically set around this woman who is connected to Winthrop, hasn't seen it since she was a child, comes back, and she's the daughter of a familiar character on Winthrop Island. And it's connected to an incident that actually happened in the real past of Fisher's Island, on which I based Winthrop Island, a steamship wreck in 1846. So we go back and forth between those two incidents and the present day, and unravel a mystery that has taken place on board the ship.
Ooh.
We'll take a short break and be back with the Ocean House Author Series here on WCRI.
The cold and blustery days of winter, when New Englanders are holed up with nowhere to go and nowhere to be, are the perfect time to curl up with a good book. If you or someone in your life that enjoys whiling away the hours by getting lost in the pages of a novel, why not present them with a book by hotelier, actress and nationally best-selling and award-winning author Deborah Goodrich Royce. Start with Deborah's latest thriller, Reef Road, a Publishers Weekly, Good Morning America, and American Booksellers Association pick. This true crime-inspired novel of suspense and high society in Palm Beach probes unhealed generational scars and a wrenching and original work of fiction. To learn more about the fascinating life and times of the author and her other page-turning mysteries, Finding Mrs. Ford and Ruby Falls, visit DeborahGoodrichRoyce.com.
And we're back with the Ocean House Author Series on WCRI.
Okay, all right, now, your questions.
What stunning and wonderful interaction you all have. It's so dynamic and exhilarating and wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much. It's so exciting.
Thank you.
I feel that you're focusing on plots and all that kind of interaction. Are there certain underlying philosophical things that matter to you?
Well, yes. In this one, and it's funny, we normally do bring this up when we do our talks. One of, I think, a familiar theme in all of our books, but especially this one, because we have three women, when they first meet, they say they hate each other, but they just don't understand each other. They represent, the outer selves represent things that they don't like. But then they're all three of them are accused of a murder. They have to work together. And that's when they start to realize that they have so much more in common. So the underlying story that I think in this book, and what we really have in all of our books, is the strength of female friendship and really having that level of trust and knowing who's got your back at all times. So that's always some people, there's a lot of plot and fun stuff going on in this, but at the heart, that's what this book is about and what so many of our other books really are about.
Yeah, I mean, I think and I like to sort of say this, my books I tend so much to deal with, and this is what fascinates me so much about human beings, is that gap between persona, which is the person we project to the world and to people around us, and who we actually are on the inside. And that gap, to me, is the really most interesting space that you explore in fiction. And I think this book in particular is all about that. These women think that, each one represents a type of woman she doesn't like. But as we get to know each other, those walls start to break down and that gap starts to become exposed. So, there is a lot of lighthearted fun along the way, but I think those the best stories have that dual thing going on where you have this really enjoyable plot, but there's some serious stuff going on underneath.
For sure.
Yeah.
As a practical matter, you're three different authors, and you must have three different styles of writing. So my question is more practical. I mean, how, especially since you must be at a distance when you're doing a lot of your work,
All of it.
how do you do it in a way where your stories are presented in kind of a similar structural way? And do you ever have any conflicts with that? Because you must have all your own styles.
Well, our favorite conspiracy theory, someone once sidled up to us at the end of one of these talks and said, "Don't worry, you can tell me, I won't tell."
I figured it out.
Beatrice really writes the books, and you and Karen just provide expertise. And we're like we wish.
Yeah, right.
And we're still curious about the type
I have
of
no
expertise
of my own, so
but you write the whole book clearly.
Yeah,
so I
it's
mean,
a fascinating theory, and I
know,
wonder
right?
why.
But I think it's because, from the very first book, people have been saying it sounds seamless. It doesn't sound like 3 authors wrote it. And so it's like all the people who think Shakespeare couldn't have written Shakespeare. Not that we're on a level with Shakespeare, but when something seems like it can't possibly be, people try to find other reasons that it is that way. And no, the Earl, De Vere did not write our books, or Shakespeare. But what happens is we write round robin. And before we write our own chapters, we always read the other 2. And my theory has always been it's because all of us at some point or another did choral singing. And so we learn to adapt our ears and to blend our voices. And so when we read those other 2 chapters, we pick up the themes and the structures that they're using. And then we transpose them and adapt our voices in our chapters, and we create something new. We create a tri-style or a unistyle.
The univoice.
Yes.
The univoice is what we call it. And it's something that we clicked onto quite, by accident or just not even by design. We just instinctively walked into that voice when we wrote The Forgotten Room, our first collaboration.
And I think the interesting thing structurally about this one is, this is the first book where all 3 characters exist in the same point, in time. So, when I'm writing my chapter, I'm also writing Karen and Lauren's character, in my own chapter. So that was, and it wasn't something we sort of talked about beforehand. I personally loved, when I would get, when it was my turn to write, and I would read what Karen and Lauren had written in the meantime, and I would see my character doing things in their scenes, and I'm like, because we had created these characters in common, we had done so much backstory, just biographical, brainstorming about these characters, that they were able to represent my character, in ways that were not just true to that character, but also illuminated aspects of her character that I hadn't thought about or weren't as clear to me. And the fact that, they're writing my character from the outside looking in, and I'm writing my character from the inside looking out. So it was a great way to develop our characters, and I think that takes probably just a massive level of trust in each other. But I also had fun writing Karen and Lauren's characters.
Yeah, so much fun.
So when you kick off your 4-day writing bookdoggle,
Bookdoggle, I like it.
did you go to Scotland? Do you usually go to the place where you base the book?
Very sore spot.
Yes.
So
we wanted to.
When we wrote The Glass Ocean, we had this great idea. We were going to do our writing retreat on a transatlantic voyage. That didn't happen.
No.
And then we wrote a book set in Paris, and we were like, let's go to Paris. And our husbands were like, well, who's going to take care of the kids? And we're like, well, we'll hire a nanny for you and for the kids. And still, it just didn't wash. So, Scotland.
Yeah.
I don't think we even had any hope that we were going to get to Scotland.
But luckily, we'd all been to Scotland on our own.
Well, and we also had excellent source material, like that movie, A Castle for Christmas.
True.
Because actually, that is part of the
binge read those wonderful Scottish set historical bodice rippers from the 80s and 90s.
Yes.
And
Laird
this
and
book
the
is a little
Lamb.
bit of an homage to that.
Yeah,
book
they're heavily referenced.
Yeah, heavily referenced. We had so much fun, paying tribute to the women on whose shoulders we stand, writing this book today. And I think because we've never actually written a book that has not been set somewhere that we have not personally visited.
Although in this case, we all have spent considerable time in Scotland.
Yeah.
I at one point studied Scottish Renaissance history, which I know everyone is fascinated by, and lived in Edinburgh. Karen went to horse riding camp in Scotland. Beatrice lived in England and would spend a lot of time in Scotland. Yes. But we're so amused by the American perception of Scotland, and that the Scotland, frankly, we all spent time in is very different from the Scotland we see represented in those old bodice rippers.
We have this, this American fantasy of Scotland that we kind of leaned into a little bit.
Yeah, it's very tongue-in-cheek.
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah.
And our fabulous Scottish accents, our phonetic Scottish representation.
Right. I mean, because there isn't a single romance novel of the 80s where you can't find someone saying, "Ugh, dinna you ken." And I have never actually heard a real Scot say that.
Never.
No.
Lassie.
Did you have a question? Hello, Serena. Hi.
I was wondering, how do you have a publishing house, editor, agent for your books you write together and then separate for the books that you write as individuals?
Well, just as we are Team W, we are lucky enough to all have agents whose first names begin with the letter A. So we have our own, Karen has her agent, and then Beatrice and I have the same agent, but we call them the A team, and we're Team W, so it all works.
Yeah.
But of course, we have the same editor for the tri-books, who is also used to be Beatrice's editor, but is Lauren's current editor. I've never worked with this editor before, except for the tri-books.
But now my editor for my standalones is Lauren's old editor.
Yes. So Beatrice is current. So I'm with Beatrice's first editor. Beatrice is currently with my second editor, and Karen is with my fourth editor.
So it's a very incestuous thing.
There will be a quiz after the event.
Swing your partner's do-si-do.
Yes.
I think we have time for one more.
And we do have a giveaway. Just which we can do very
okay.
quickly,
One more
so.
question and then a giveaway.
I love the headband.
Is that
Okay.
Layla?
Sorry, we're all going to
When
headband.
you said plaid, I made all my friends wear the plaid.
I noticed the plaid row here, and I salute you, ladies.
So we love you
Well
guys.
played.
We come to all of your events. We've read
Thank
all your
you.
books. I didn't get a chance to go to the Newport event that you guys had. And I was just wondering how that was, what went down, if you're going to do another little excursion somewhere for a few days.
maybe?
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
We do say what happens in Newport stays
Oh,
in Newport.
I have heard that. I go along with that.
But we might do it
maybe
again. We had a
something-
lot of fun, and I think
It was
every reader,
fabulous.
we got great feedback, and we do anticipate doing it in the
Yes,
future.
and we may even do it in the city in which our next W book is set.
Which
so
is a state
stay
secret. So-
tuned. All we can say is stay tuned.
Okay, so here, so this is, we've got 4 of, and they're stuffed with fun
These
things.
were left over
Sheep,
from
stuffed
that
with sheep.
Newport weekend, and so it's our.
It's a stress sheet. So we wanted to give this to the people who really showed up with the plaid, and you could most of all of you could, but we have to be selective, so we're just going to be, so obviously the antlers. That's
Clearly.
Oh, thank you. And then we have the lady who brought her plaid friends with the beautiful
Okay, that
headband.
totally wins one.
Plaid and friendship both
Okay,
themes in this book.
I've got one more left.
So who is the plaidest of them all?
Oh,
Yay!
But don't forget, you can get these tote bags for yourself if you buy another book at the
yes, there's
table in the
plenty
corner.
more, and we also have some more sheep back there. So,
And some shortbread if you need a little sugar break.
And there's wine and there are hors d'oeuvres. Ladies, Karen,
fourth W.
Lauren, Beatrice, thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this special broadcast of the Ocean House Authors Series with Deborah Goodrich Royce. Please tune in each month as we'll bring you a new Ocean House Authors Series highlighting nationally best-selling and award-winning authors in a salon-style conversation. Hosted by Ocean House owner, actress, and best-selling author Deborah Goodrich Royce. The WCRI is pleased to be partnering with the Ocean House to bring you this ongoing series highlighting the best and the brightest of the literary world. Thank you once again for joining us. And in the words of Margaret Atwood, in the end, we all become stories.